The Ancients Were Mighty, Chapter 2, Engineering and Logistics. In the previous chapter, we've seen similarities that point to a globally active civilization that had a specific way of handling stone. The stone structures in question are all explained by conventional theories though. For example, the walls at Sacsayhuaman and Ollantaytambo in Peru were supposedly made by the Inca. We see an inconsistency here, since the Inca did not travel back in time to create the similar architecture we can find in Egypt and Japan. Therefore, the research should be focused on re-examining if the Inca built the Peruvian structures at all. South America is a good place to start our research. This is mostly because the evidence surely hasn't been tampered with. The level of technological development of the Inca is clear. The Inca were practically living in the Bronze Age before the Spanish arrived, and we know that the Spanish did not build Sacsayhuaman. The Inca did not have any steel precision tools, and they had only bronze tools. They did not have any pulleys or big animals for heavy lifting, and they did not use any cranes. They had not yet invented the wheel and did not have writing or mathematics. Let's see how the conventional theories explain the building of Sacsayhuaman and Ollantaytambo with Inca technology, and see if there are good reasons for believing that the Inca built these structures. I had a hard time looking for sound and complete theories and research about the actual process of how the Inca built Sacsayhuaman and Ollantaytambo. Mostly my search ends with references to just a few people. They are to be found on Wikipedia and other mainstream sources. The people in question are Vincent Arlee, an author, architect and explorer, and Jean-Pierre Protsen, a master stonemason. It is therefore not surprising that these mainstream researchers star in a TV documentary about the Inca. In this documentary, the researchers do field research in which the goal is to reproduce the stone walls of Sacsayhuaman and Ollantaytambo. Any good field experiment reproduces the initial result to confirm a theory. And a good researcher will make note of every event, how insignificant it might be. In my analysis, I will try to live up to these standards. In this part of the field research, they attempt to reproduce the transportation of a megalithic block from quarry to building site, which is at Ollantaytambo. The 1-ton block that comes from the quarry falls down the mountain. This next ancient block weighs 15 tons and is eventually, after a blessing, moved over a near flat surface using 250 people. The Sun Temple at Ollantaytambo has blocks weighing 45 tons, so around 750 people would have been needed to get such a rock up the mountain, provided that there is a giant ramp with a gentle enough slope. The field work does not show any blocks going up the mountain. I am not saying it can't be done here, I am just pointing out some evidence. Here Jean-Pierre Protsen is demonstrating how to precisely cut blocks using Inca techniques. He is using a stone hammer. He replaces the stone a lot of times to make markings that indicate where the surfaces need to be adjusted. At Sacsayhuaman we see boulders that weigh tons, tens of tons and hundreds of tons. Protsen stone weighs about 30 kilos. This experiment does not account for that. The constant precision replacement of blocks that weigh up to 100 tons without damaging them is just too impractical, and without a crane system kind of impossible. Therefore, this is not a viable Inca method for constructing megalithic walls. Vincent Arlee is proposing another theory in which he suspends the block above the planes it needs to fit into. There, he uses a thing called a scribe to ensure that everywhere the distance between the surfaces is the same. The results are not comparable with the precision we see at Ollantaytambo and Sacsayhuaman. Here, every adjacent surface fits perfectly deeply into the interior of the wall. When we compare the two, one would say that this field work produces crumbly, superficial edges. To make matters worse, they use steel chisels to quote-unquote speed up the work. This was not a use of Inca techniques, and this is surely not a reproduction of the megalithic walls. Here they tried to move a boulder that has been worked on two sides according to the technique proposed by Vincent Arlee. This stone weighs 500 or maybe 1000 kilograms at the most. Here it becomes apparent that maneuvering such a stone in a precise manner is a really difficult, precise and dangerous affair. They fail. Eventually they end up pushing and smashing the stone into place. This would not be possible with the multi-ton boulders at Sacsayhuaman. I frankly think that proposing balancing a 100-ton boulder on a bunch of logs and maneuvering it into place this way is silly. This fieldwork failed and it did not prove that the Inca built the megalithic walls at all. And now for the conclusion. Here we combine the evidence that the field research provided. The builders used different quarries for Sacsayhuaman and Ollantaytambo. A number of them were tens of kilometers away. According to the fieldwork, a stone weighing 15 tons needs 250 people to be dragged over a near flat surface. So a stone that weighs 100 tons needs 1800 people to be dragged. With many stones to be placed and a mountainous terrain in which to navigate, one could wonder, 1800 people? Where would you place them and how would you organize them into one force? What kind of an infrastructure would one need for such an endeavor, and where's this massive infrastructure now? And what time would it take to move thousands of blocks without any infrastructure? These are the logistical problems that arise when holding on to the conventional theories. It is the same with the proposed stone cutting techniques. The researchers used steel chisels to speed up the process. It is not possible to cut andesite with bronze, so the Inca would have to make use of hard river stones to cut huge pieces of stone very precisely to fit one or more adjacent surfaces. When smashing a hard rock with a river stone, it is going to take a lot of time and effort to make a huge, smooth, perfectly fitting surface. Note, one mistake and the entire surface has to be recarved. Even more important is that the resulting structures of the fieldwork simply do not correspond with the megalithic walls. The walls of the fieldwork are not that precise and the stones are too little in size. Nowhere in the field research we see a near perfect fit of a bunch of irregular megalithic polygons. The combination of these things show that this level of perfection cannot be achieved when using Inca techniques. The craziest thing of all is the supposed maneuvering of multi-ton megalithic blocks in the air. If 1800 people are needed to move a 100-ton block horizontally, how does one suppose that they coordinate themselves together to precisely lift or slide this giant block perfectly fit into its predestined place? The field research showed how impractical and dangerous it would be. Can you imagine the forces present at such an endeavor? If all, this field research proved how improbable it is that the walls were built with Inca technology. It is the combination of problems that arise when using these techniques that show that these are just logically insane, not viable and therefore improbable. This find shows that this type of rare stone cutting found in South American Andes can be linked to the other sites we've mentioned before. The same culture of builders could have visited Peru, Egypt and Japan because there's no way to reproduce the walls with the common characteristics by using Inca technology. Now we know nothing about how the structures were achieved. In part 2 we shall look at the stones instead of the construction techniques and see what they tell us. Maybe they've got some answers. I hope you enjoy.